Good morning, 97.1. Jim Costa, John Jansen, Heather Park, Gov and Greg behind the glass. Heather's got some neighborhood drama. We'll get to that end of the hour. Got $2 Grand Slam at 7:25. A chance to win $2,000 with us on your way into work. Is it time for Jared Goff to pull a Patrick Mahomes? Is it time for the Lions to do what the Chiefs just did yesterday? They restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract. And John, they freed up $43 million in cap space. They took Mahomes, who was going to count $78 million against the cap, and took him down to a much more manageable $34 million. This is what we all think is going to happen with Jared Goff this offseason, right? He's going to be about $69 million for this season, and they can restructure him down into
the 30s.
The mid-30s.
Yeah.
This is a move that makes sense for everybody. John, the way this works mechanically, though, is they're going to have to give him more guaranteed money later in the deal, yes?
Yeah, so how this works, and it's interesting because you can do it a lot of ways. And normally when they come to a player, the only reason a player wouldn't, it's probably easier to explain it this way, is if they've thrown their hands up and they say, I want to force my way out. You either pay me or cut me. And for a year, they may just simply say, we'll pay you. But at some point, it becomes untenable in regards to the number, and they'll find a way to move you, whether it's a trade or a cut. The benefit is always on the player's side. So, yeah, they give you more guaranteed money, and it's a little bit different than when I played because the only guaranteed money that we had when the contracts I signed was your signing bonus. So they would take some of your salary. They would make a signing bonus out of it, which would then allow them to prorate that money over the coming years.
So Goff has 4 years left on his deal. It's 2 years, an out, a third year, and then a void year.
Correct.
What they're going to do if they do this, and John, you're with me, they're going to do this, right?
Yes.
They're going to just guarantee more money and push that money to later into the contract. This effectively means you're, quote, stuck with him, but I'm cool with being stuck with Jared. There may be some Lions fans who feel apprehensive about this. Now is a chance to call and speak your piece. But, John, what the Chiefs just did to Mahomes, restructuring his deal, the Lions should do for Jared Goff with Jared Goff.
Right, and he's 31 years old. This is, I mean, when you're talking about a quarterback, and especially one that is famously not mobile.
He's not fleet of foot?
No. And so you don't necessarily have to worry about a lot of the contact injuries unless he gets hit, in the pocket.
Which they're going to have to address.
Correct. And
this is how you address it, by the way. You free up $35 million, $40 million in cap space.
And over the last 3 years, he has been one of the more reliable, healthy, available quarterbacks. I expect him to continue to be that all the way up into, his mid to late 30s, at least. So, yeah, if you push money down the road or you add... And so the uniqueness of how the contracts are done now is there is more guaranteed money already in the contract. Mm-hmm. So you can't just shift it to guarantee. You can't just shift it to, you can shift some of it to signing bonus, which will continue to prorate it. But it's adding years at the end. Some of those can be voidable, which obviously he's not here, and you still have that cap hit. Not ideal, but with a quarterback, you can add years to the end of the contract and not necessarily make it a new deal, but give him new money.
Well, that's the thing. There are tools. You could extend him, or you just move money to years that they aren't fully guaranteed.
Correct.
And I think that's probably more of what they'll do, but they have all the tools at their disposal, and John, they should use them because they do need to still address a pocket for him to throw in. Still need to address the defense in a meaningful way. We just watched two defenses much better than the Lions play one another in the Super Bowl. I don't know why anybody would be against this. I suppose you'd have to be like someone who hates Jared Goff, who thinks he's an abomination, an anchor who weighs the organization down. If you're one of those people, then you would be hesitant to do this. But I think if you're at all even half committed to Jared Goff, you have to restructure his deal so that you can put the proper team around Jared Goff to chase the Super Bowl next season. I think this is an obvious yes. Do what the Chiefs just did. And then I guess the follow-up question is, what do you want them to do with that money? Is it all in on Linderbaum? Is it McGovern, who we talked about yesterday? Is it an edge player? If you've got a guy you want to use that money on, you can let us know. 248-539-9797.
And there's other guys. The three highest cap numbers for next year of guys that you know are going to be on the team, or at least you assume will be, are Jared Goff, which we're talking about, Aleem McNeil, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would expect if they're trying to maximize all of their possible cap space, you would see some type of restructure from all three of those guys. We're talking about Jared Goff because he is obviously the highest number, but Amon-Ra St. Brown and Aleem McNeil, now I would expect at least two of the three, maybe all three, but it depends on what their thoughts are about Aleem McNeil recovering from the ACL. Do you really want to push money down the road and absorb a cap hit if he isn't able to return fully from that injury?
So, and for that reason, I actually think a better candidate would be Sewell if they wanted to create. If they can't create enough money from Goff, which it'll be a lot, and if they couldn't get enough money from a St. Brown restructure, I'd actually skip Aleem because of the uncertainty with the injury. And I go to Sewell, who I think is going to have a gold jacket and play 15-plus years in this league. And I go, yeah, I'm cool with adding a year or kicking money down to a later year. Sewell would be a guy that they can drill into that contract if they need to.
I agree. So, yeah, I mean, then you start going down the list. Okay, who's next? If it's not Aleem McNeil, who's next? Penei Sewell. Who's next?
Well, then there's a drop-off.
Yeah, because of the cap number right now. Next year, to create more cap space, you're going to be talking about Aiden Hutchinson.
Aiden, J-Mo.
Sure.
Guys like that. Again, that's why the cap's real, and anybody who tells you it's not real is just lying. But there are smart, savvy GMs and front offices that can rob Peter to pay Paul, make it a 2028 problem. Like, this is always a tool that teams can use. And by the way, the Lions are in a position where they need to use these tools. They do not have cap space to properly function in free agency unless they do this.
Right. And at some point, you got to pay the piper.
Yeah.
But if you could push it to 28, you could push it to 29, you can keep kicking the can down the road as far as you can. You've got a Super Bowl or multiple bites at the apple.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways. There's magic that you can work with the cap. It is real. But you always see guys like Howie Roseman. You see, Kansas City, San Francisco, all of the teams that are competitive year in, year out. The Rams, they are able to come up with cap space because of being able to manipulate contracts that they have on the books.
Tex says the conversation you guys are having is how the Saints ended up in cap hell for so long. That's John's point. Eventually, you pay the piper.
Sorry, who was in cap?
Saints.
Oh, the Saints. Well, some GMs are better at it than others. And yes, you will come to a year where you're in salary cap hell.
Well, where you really get in a bind is if you have stuff like the Kirby Joseph injury, where you're like, I don't want to restructure. I'm on the hook for a lot of dead money. If he can't play, if he's not healthy, like that. If you have two or three of those, it really makes it hard as a GM. But if you have good quality young players with runway, which is a lot of the Lions roster, you use these tools. Because if you don't, to John's point, the Rams and the Chiefs and the Eagles are. So while we're all playing with the same salary cap, in a lot of ways, they're playing with more money than you if they're willing to do these tricks and you're not.
And how do you mitigate some of that salary cap hell year or, year, maybe 2 years? Is you have to draft every year extremely well. So then you have cheap, really good talent.
And the last couple drafts
have not been great.
Not paid off the way the first few drafts did for Brad Holmes. And I think that's part of the problem too. 248-539-9797. Speak now. Do you want Goff to get his contract restructured the way Mahomes did? It would effectively anchor him into Detroit for a longer, more guaranteed sum of money. But I think it's a non-negotiable. You have to do it if you want to move forward and give yourself a chance to win. We'll get to Heather's Neighbors next, 97.1.